Oh man, I just had a freaking doozy of a day. I think I just did. I started working at 7 a.m. It's 10 o'clock now. I just coded for some amount of hours straight. What is that? 12, holy shit, 13, 14, 15 hours? My God. So I'm cooked. Absolutely cooked. But that was a ton of fun, very intense. I took like an hour break to go to the gym and like an hour break to read, and I ate like two fucking protein bars, although I'm pretty sure these are more like candy bars if I'm being honest. I didn't fucking shower. Not a great day in terms of balance. But man, dude, I got so much done. At the beginning of today, this app was like functional, but like not really. Um, Dude, I don't even like remember what the app was like when I started. It was like it had basically you could like put in a reflection, save it, take it down, click on it. What did I when did today start? Oh my god, dude. That's how you know it was good. I literally cannot remember like what the state of the app was when I started this, but that doesn't matter. I want to talk about my experience today, dude. It was fantastic. I was sitting here. I'm going to show you some of this shit real quick. All right, so probably I started coding like last, well, I started coding in Swift last June. Let's see, I think last November or December or October, last October, like so almost a year ago, ish. Actually, almost like half a year ago, really, a little over half a year ago. Um, and I was so confused. I was so lost. There were these things called enums, and I was like, what the fuck is an enum? And I remember like, dude, literally like 3 months ago, looking at examples where I was seeing shit like what I'm doing here, where we'd have like switch statements in an enum. I was like, I didn't even know why I would ever use an enum versus a struct versus a class. And all of that shit just seemed so overwhelming. It was ridiculous. And now like I was writing my code and I was like, all right, I'm gonna implement this mentors thing where basically you're going to be able to go in and select between a set of different mentors, and each mentor is going to have a different prompt associated with it. That way each mentor can be kind of distinguished from the other ones. They can focus in on being more action oriented, more emotional awareness oriented, or more thought oriented and belief system oriented. And so I was kind of just thinking about how I wanted to do that. Um, let's see. And I drew up, some diagrams over here, got some kind of like rough ideas of what I wanted that to look like, list out the features. I didn't get super visual with it today. Sometimes I get very visual with it. And then I just like knew like I need a fucking enum. And then I came over to here and I was like, I need to create a user service. I'm gonna make it a singleton. And I was like, you know why I'm gonna make it a singleton? Because I only need one representation of the user data, because within the user data, I'm going to store these knowledge bases. This is kind of like going to be my workaround for not being able to use Pinecone, where I'm going to use ChatGPT to create summaries of reflections and abstract from the reflections. It's going to abstract like qualities of the user, and then it's going to put those in here. So like Epictetus is going to be looking at your kind of like your belief system, your desires, your wants, and your worldview. So the knowledge base that I'll develop for that is going to focus on that kind of stuff. So I just came right in here. I cranked this whole thing out in like an hour and a half. Granted, I used ChatGPT like a motherfucker, but it was like I just told ChatGPT like, hey, I need an update function. I need a create user function. I need this fetch user function. I need you to structure it this way. It's going to have these properties, all that stuff. Pump this shit out for me. Honestly, like I could not create this app without ChatGPT. And maybe I'll talk about the role that ChatGPT plays in coding, because it's not as simple as just like tell it what you want and it'll give it to you. You've got to know what you're talking about. But like something like this, especially for like CloudKit services where you're just abstracting data to and from the web, that's something that's very common. And it's the kind of thing that ChatGPT can just like pump out for you. You make some adjustments and you've got it going. So this thing only took me like an hour. Without ChatGPT, that would have taken like 2 days or something, if I'm being honest. But yeah, and then with that speed, with that kind of speed, it makes it a lot easier to iterate over your code, to go like, when you choose an approach, like having a singleton for a user, to represent my user, choosing an approach like that, it's not nearly as much of a commitment. So I can kind of do a little bit of planning, say, hey, I think this is what I'm going to do, and then talk to ChatGPT a bit, figure out like what are some things I might not be considering, settle on a structure, and then create that shit. And then if it doesn't work, it's like an hour or 2 wasted, not days wasted. So that is just fantastic. Anyway, but yeah, it was a really good experience. There's another thing I want to show you in the model. I came in here and I remember like, this is a pretty fundamental idea, is optionals in Swift coding. And I remember, dude, literally like I think I was learning about them in January, and I didn't really start to get them until last November, and I didn't really start to get them until January. And I was like, what the fuck are these things? And now like, dude, I came in here and I was making this whole guy, and I was like, oh, I just need to like make my mentor be an optional. And I fucking like the factors that contributed to that decision were large, or I guess fairly wide. For one, I was like, okay, I've already done a bunch of calls or data requests or network requests with this function, and I've already declared this structure. I've already declared this structure multiple places in my code. If I go and make this not an optional, it's going to mean that I'm going to have to go through and change this everywhere in the code. And then on top of that, I remembered, well, wait a second, and there's a difference here. Look, this guy, there are like 3 options. You can declare it as like a type that basically needs to be initialized when this guy's initialized. You can declare it as a value or with a value, which means that when this thing's declared, it's initialized with this value. Or I could declare it with an optional, like this guy right here. And basically what I'm going through, so I made this isInit function, or variable or property technically. And I was like, all right, I gotta make an isInit property. Why am I using this? It's to determine whether or not the conversation within this journal entry has been initialized or not. That's only going to happen once for every journal entry. So when somebody submits a journal entry, it's going to go up to the cloud. It's going to say it's not been initialized. Then when you go and you click in to start your conversation with the Stoic mentor that's associated with your journal entry, because basically how it's structured right now is every journal entry you go in and you have a conversation with your Stoic mentor. And the Stoic mentor has the memory of that conversation and that journal entry, and then those other data pieces I was showing you. But yeah, so the thought process was, all right, it's only going to be used once. I don't want to just go straight from submit to then show the initialized page, where basically I'm going to have a page where you can select one of the mentors that you want to work with for this reflection. And I didn't want to do that. And there's a bunch of code that I have to do in order to literally initialize the conversation, where I just pump all of the data into a prompt template, and then I send that to GPT, and then I get that response back. And then that first response is the first thing that pops up. So that's a whole process. And the reason I decided to initialize this as value is because, first off, if I don't use an is init function, what could happen is the user could save their entry, go into their initialization page, and then close out of the app. And then they never get that data. So every time the user is looking at one of their reflections, they need to be able to go click in and see if it needs to check every time if it's been initialized or not. So basically it's having the initialization process happen as a result of a property of the journal entry and not as a result of the action of posting that journal entry. And that's a huge difference. And I kind of had to make that decision. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to fucking do this because it offers me more flexibility. And because that's a whole other thing. Anyway, then the mentor enum, I was sitting there and I had the thought, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this fucking enum and I'm going to just like start pumping in these what are called associated values into them. And then I was like, wait, I can like not pump in associated values by using some other strategies. And then, what the hell did I do? I decided to make it an optional. And the reasoning for that is essentially, one, I don't have to go through and fix the initializations of all my journal entry objects that's used throughout the code. And in addition to that, when you start your, when you submit your reflection, you don't have a mentor chosen at that point. So it needs to be an optional. It needs to be able to have or not have an optional. And so when you go in and you initialize your conversation, when you go in for the first time to start your conversation with your Stoic mentor, it needs to pop up that screen that allows you to choose your mentor. And then it's at that point where you get to choose which mentor you want to have. And then it's that point where it actually saves that value to the variable. And then it's at that point where the is init function or the is init property gets set to true. And also you want that to happen after all these other things, because there's a lot of network oriented actions taking place in that process of initializing a conversation. If something fails along the way, I want to return an error and kind of stop all of the processes and wait to initialize or wait to set that is initialized property to true until after all that's happened. Anyway, I'm going on a fucking rant. There's so much other shit that I did, and it was like, it was crazy to have all of these decision-making processes just like run through my mind like that. And then just like kind of go in and like throw that guy in there, throw the other dude over there. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. Fuck, I actually had something like of value to say that wasn't just like a rant about code. Although I think this would be good stuff to talk about if this was like a coding series, which again, I might make, but I'm going to try to figure out like Pinecone and LangChain before I do that. I did get an email that might be helpful, but I'm going to focus on finishing this app first before I worry about that. And then once I kind of figure that stuff out, I might actually start to be able to implement some vectorized databases and some embeddings into this app. I was thinking the way that I might do that is by using, instead of having all of the users' reflections be the vectorized database, I might do some of that, but I think a big thing might be doing like Stoic texts as the vectorized database. So that could be cool. But right now, I'm gonna be honest, I pretty much finished the app earlier today and it was good to go. I had it where literally like you're putting those reflections in, saving them, you go in, you click on the reflection and you start talking to the Stoic mentor, and the Stoic mentor is like responding, and it's like, it's fucking beautiful. There's a lot of like back end little technicalities that I need to take care of, like managing token limits, or presenting errors. That's not super back end, that's actually super front end. But more like background things, not like major features, just like little nicks and knacks that I still need to do. And that list keeps piling up. Another thing is like, dude, it's crazy how many things you have to account for. I was watching a YouTube video and it was like a 40-minute long one. I was looking for something specific and I happened to click on a part where they said, when you extract your data from CloudKit, it'll only extract a max of 100 items. So you have to use this thing called a cursor to load the next set of 100 items in. And I was like, oh shit, like I did not know that. And eventually, if some user has more than 100 reflections, half of their reflections or all of their old reflections are just going to disappear. And that's something I wouldn't have ran into for a long time. And I would have been like, why the fuck is that happening? And figuring that out would have been so complicated. So I'd imagine there's a lot of shit like that I have no idea how I'm going to deal with. And then, God, the data flow in this app has gotten just outrageously complicated. I mean, there is shit going everywhere. I have published variables getting set on initialization, and then they're like tied to dude, it's crazy. It's so crazy. But I had everything working. It was pretty like well compact, and then I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to add a whole new level of functionality where basically you'll have user knowledge base, or like a little summaries of like the users like personality traits and tendencies and emotional susceptibilities or fucking whatever. And then I'm also going to create multiple Stoic mentors and make it so that you can choose to have one of the Stoic mentors. And then I made writing styles for each of the Stoic mentors. And that, like, all of that, just like building out the prompts for all of that literally took like 4 hours. Like, I thought that shit would be like no problem, but I did spend a ton of time just like doing like prompt engineering, figuring out like what words would work best, how to like kind of separate out the different approaches to mentorship between the different mentors. So basically the approach that I landed on is thought, action, emotion, which is a very common framework in like psychology and just in like philosophy and analyzing human behavior. But particularly in cognitive behavioral therapy, they have what's called the cognitive triangle, where they look at literally actions, thoughts, emotions, and they look at how the three interact with one another. And so I separated those three out by having the Stoic mentor, each Stoic mentor, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, look at a different aspect of the individual's life. And then so Seneca is going to be focused on helping you like take action, be strategic, plan shit out, use like actions to change your thoughts and behaviors or your thoughts and emotions. And then the other two are going to focus on the other things. Epictetus is going to focus on changing your desires. So his is kind of like thought, but the way I thought about that is it's like belief, like you're shifting your worldview through reasoning about your experiences, reasoning about the things that you actually want. A lot of times we think that we want something, but then when we actually question that want a little bit, we start to realize, okay, we don't actually want that, we want this. And then when we shift Epictetus calls it aligning your aversions and your desires and aversions with nature, essentially, right? So you want things that are virtuous and you don't want things that are not virtuous. And that seems to be a pretty grounded idea to me. It's kind of the difference between like kind of, I guess, conscious desires and unconscious desires, or surface desires and deep desires, where it's like on the surface we might want to like, you know, get high, but deep down we just want to feel joyful. And ultimately we don't want to get high, we want to feel joyful, and getting high isn't the most pure way to feel joy. But if we can, you know, find ways to break down those kind of like interior walls and interior barriers between us and joy by, you know, being less insecure, being less lazy, being more excited, practicing certain thought patterns, letting go of certain negative emotions, then we start to naturally feel this sense of joy, and we start to develop meaningful relationships. We're more open and honest with the people that we build friendships with. Then we feel this deeper sense of joy, and it's like, okay, that's what we actually wanted all along. It could also be like we don't want to be stressed, and so we like get fucked up. But in reality, we don't want to just be like running to alcohol for stress relief. We want to like, you know, drink just because we want to have a good time, shit like that. Anyway, I need to go to sleep. Yeah. I feel like there's one other thing. Really good stuff. Really good to feel like everything kind of just clicked, and all of these like little pieces of knowledge, like these small facts that I figured out like each day, just all coming together and like allowing me to create this app like totally from my mind, and just have thoughts and like start writing this shit down and look up like a quick YouTube video, and then like, I don't know, just keep cranking away. Anyway, right. What I wanted to say is, dude, yeah, so I just added like this massive new feature that I have to implement, and it's kind of a doozy. And essentially it's kind of like, I think the way I would categorize it's AI optimization. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to optimize the Stoic Mentor AI chatbot so that it's actually like really honed in on the user, their personality, and it's honed in on Stoic ideas, and giving like feedback and advice and guidance in a really useful way that isn't going to be like default ChatGPT stuff. That's why I'm doing all this crazy prompt engineering. I'm trying to use some techniques where I'll use ChatGPT to take user inputs, compress them down into descriptions of the user to give that knowledge, to develop those knowledge bases, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to essentially optimize the AI to work for this app. It's going to make this app actually special and different from, because ultimately before all it was copy and paste your reflection, tell it, hey, give me Stoic advice on this reflection, and paste it into ChatGPT. All I did was take that and give it an iPhone app user interface and build a cloud storage system for your reflections. And that's like, I mean, that's cool. And I'm really glad that I did that. And I learned a shit ton doing that. But I do want to make this like fucking, I guess, actually useful. I don't know. I want to optimize the AI a little bit. I want to actually make it like a Stoic mentor. I'm just ranting. I got to eat some food and go to bed. Holy shit. But the point was, I got to stop just like throwing new crazy shit in here. Granted, I've only been working on this app for a week and a half. Oh my God. Dude, that's crazy. I thought this thing was going to take me like a month to build. But I also had like 4 or 5 days of like outrageous errors. And then the last 2 days I've just been cranking, which has been super nice. But I need to stop like throwing new shit in here after I implement these features. I'm making a promise to myself and the world, I guess. Chill out, just chill the fuck out. Make it good, optimize the AI a little bit, make it, honed in on the user and what a Stoic mentor could do, and a Stoic mentor AI chatbot with the writing style and the techniques and the psychology and all of that, and then get those small issues dealt with, kind of all the technicalities, deal with the technicalities. So last feature, I should implement the last feature by this Sunday, and then next week should be focused on technicalities and posting the app. I think that's a good goal. I think that would be a really good goal. If I could have the app like literally on the App Store by the end of next week, I would be so happy. And then at that point, it's going to be starting to get back to that exam that I've absolutely been dreading. get back to reading. I've kind of been slacking on reading. Fortunately, I read a fuck ton of books at the beginning of summer, so I kind of backloaded that. I think I need to read 16 books, and I'm 5 books in, and I think I'm 6 weeks into break. It might be 12 books, but I'm almost done with another one. I'm gonna get some more books in. Um, but yeah, and then it's gonna be kind of start looking at getting jobs, looking for job applications, trying to make money, and kind of put this app on the back burner. See what I'll have to reassess on the other side. But yeah, this has been a 20-minute video, so I'm gonna call it quits here. Farewell, folks.